In our segment, Your Reporter Behind the Story, we want to give you a better look at how journalists at CBS Colorado learn about stories that are impacting the community. We recently learned about a man who was once an All-American with eyes on the NFL. He just got out of jail after a meticulously planned armed robbery that was going to score him more than $1 million in cash. Your investigator, Brian Moss, spent months looking into this heist and learned the only reason it fell apart is because $1 million weighs a lot more than you might think.
Office, please!
If you steal $1.2 million in cash and use a gun,
come out with your hands up!
This is the response you can expect.
Sheriff's office, you in there?
And they had planned this for 6 months. They even knew the exact day to hit when the most amount of money was going to be coming in.
I was just robbed at gunpoint at my place of work.
It was December 1st, 2021. When this cash transport company in Arapahoe County was hit. They collect cash from marijuana businesses around the state, then bring it back to their headquarters.
It was a small handgun, maybe a .22, and he cocked it. And we have a ton of cameras in this garage. It will all be on camera.
And it was all on tape. The heist recorded by half a dozen cameras. The transport van, stuffed with money, pulls in. A lone gunman dressed head to toe in black, wearing a mask and gloves, walks in after. He catches the delivery driver by surprise and holds her at gunpoint, forcing her to put over $1.2 million cash into 2 garbage bags. He struggles with the bags, but then runs off into the night.
Man, I thought I was tired.
Right? Nothing like this to wake you up.
It was orchestrated perfectly. He knew exactly what he was doing. The way he entered into the garage, the way he went around the van, the way he contacted the victim, the way he ordered the victim around. I mean, it went like clockwork because he knew exactly what to do.
Arapahoe County Sheriff Sergeant Brett Kahn oversaw the investigation.
Every square inch of his body was covered in black.
Who was that gunman who tried so hard to conceal his identity? Turns out the 35-year-old man behind the mask was Devin Aguilar, who'd been a star football player at Colorado's Mullen High School, where he was a second-team All-American.
Quick throw, Aguilar, the catch.
He went on to star at the University of Washington, setting records for catches and receiving yards.
The extra contact afterwards.
Aguilar got NFL tryouts, including with the Tennessee Titans, although he was never picked up. But how did Aguilar know so much about this business and the piles of cash that he'd find?
And you don't know anybody that might have been involved in the robbery, right?
No.
They didn't know?
Aguilar had an intimate relationship with Fawn Hoya, she said. She was the transport business's lead teller, who repeatedly lied to investigators.
There's intimate details about this robbery that he would have only obtained from somebody that works here, and that is you.
But faced with evidence of her involvement, Hoya eventually flipped on Aguilar, allowing investigators to listen in on a phone call.
They know that it's you.
Don't worry about it. Just let it play out.
It's a 100% inside job.
Investigators say Aguilar's planning, detailed in notes police later recovered from Hoya's phone, might have worked, except for one thing.
He couldn't carry the money. It was too heavy for him. They didn't calculate the weight.
You see, $1,224,785.35 in cash is a heavy lift.
But you can see money back there.
Yeah, look at that.
Unable to carry the cash, the 6'1", 190-pound Aguilar dropped it 700 yards from the business.
Does it look like there's a bunch of it in there?
Oh, yeah.
They're full.
And the gloves he was wearing that night to protect his identity, he stashed them inside the trash bags.
You left your gloves, dumbass.
But how would they know that's me?
They were placed in the bag and they were sent off, and we got a DNA hit.
Anything else you want us to grab out of the car?
The DNA on the gloves matched with Aguilar, who was also wanted for a burglary in Adams County. He'd later plead guilty to theft and armed robbery for this heist. Prosecutors asked the judge to give Aguilar 15 to 20 years in prison. Instead, Judge Joseph Whitfield sentenced the former football star to 1 year in county jail and 8 years probation. He served 7 months and was released September 2nd.
We're disappointed in the sentencing. It is not what we believe the suspect deserved, and we do not believe that the victims got the justice that they deserved.
Khan says the female victim has severe anxiety and will be traumatized for the rest of her life.
People are always going to break the law, and people are always going to do things dumb.
Fawn Hoya pled guilty to armed robbery and was sentenced to 6 months in jail and 6 years probation. Now, Brian did speak with Devin Aguilar's attorney, who indicated he was not interested in talking about this case or his sentence. Brian joins us now. So, Brian, outstanding storytelling with some great elements from people during this investigation. How did you first find out about this heist?
You know, knowing we're going to have this conversation, I went back and checked my notes, and I first heard about this in June. So quite a long time ago, and it really did take about 4+ months to pull this all together. Heard about it from a contact in Arapahoe County, and I was just so surprised this story had never come out before. Yeah. But that's how I heard about it, and that's how long I heard about it, and how long it took for the story to develop. There's a lot of research.
I think a lot of people were surprised at how long it took for this story to come out. So how did it stay under wraps for so long?
Yeah, that's a great question, and I've wondered that all along, because one of the first things I did is I started searching. I was like, Devin Aguilar, this prominent Colorado athlete, a huge cash heist. How did the media not get a hold of it? But there were no reports anywhere. Nobody had ever picked up on this. And I asked Arapahoe County about this. The sheriff's office said that they had never talked about this case. And I talked to about 5 or 6 of Devin Aguilar's old high school football teammates and his coaches. And although they said they were pretty close with him and knew him pretty well, none of them had ever heard about this heist. So it just stayed under wraps, and shame on us for not finding out about it sooner.
Well, I guess, you know, better now than never, supposedly. How did the people that you talked to respond to the sentence that Aguilar received? Because I think there's a lot of people that look at this and say, oh, that might be pretty lenient.
That's certainly the emotion that we're seeing right now in social media since the story came out. A lot of people are very critical of the judge, saying that this seemed to be a very light sentence. And he took into account clearly in the sentencing his feeling that Aguilar could turn his life around, that Aguilar didn't have an especially long criminal record. He did have a previous burglary case out of Adams County. The judge clearly took that into account, but still, you heard in the story the Arapahoe County Sheriff's Office really disturbed about the sentence. That ended up with Aguilar really only getting about 6 months in jail and then 9 years probation. So there is a lot of unhappiness about this sentence since we reported this story.
One of the things that I loved most about this story were the phone calls between Fawn Hoya and Aguilar. Hoya got a similar punishment even after cooperating with police in the investigation. How did they explain that in her portion of this?
What you don't see is all the time that went by that Fawn Hoya lied to police investigators. They say she lied time after time after time, first denying that she had told anybody about how that cash transport business worked. Then they eventually found on her phone all of these diagrams. They found videotape of her walking around the place, appearing to get surveillance video to apparently help with the heist. But she lied repeatedly until finally at the last minute they say she kind of came clean and flipped on Devin Aguilar and helped them out. But they say it was a long time coming.
That money transport business that you mentioned also said that this sentencing was disappointing. Did they have anything else to say about this situation? And I imagine from their point of view, they want to protect their employees from having this happen in the future.
Yeah, the employee, the van driver, she was really shaken by this whole thing. What we didn't get to report in there that we can talk about now is she said that Aguilar actually cocked the gun, and she thought she was going to get shot in the face during this. She's extremely shaken up. She experiences a lot of anxiety and paranoia, she said. She's had security cameras installed at her home. There are long-lasting impacts on her. We also did see some statements from the chief communications officer for the company expressing a lot of disappointment for the sentence, thinking that justice really wasn't served, that Devin Aguilar should have gotten more than just the ultimately 6 months that he got in the county jail.
Brian, great reporting as always. It was
Thanks.
a fantastic story. We have more interviews with your reporters on our website, cbscolorado.com. Just head to the Behind the Story tab.